Hello, my name is Rurik Nackerud. My students actually call me Dr. Rurik, although before they called me Mixen, so there's a lot of confusion there. And getting little kids to say double R's, because I work with very young kids, is a blast. But I'm here to talk less about the kids, who I love and love working with, but I'm actually going to talk about how my recent doctorate came together. And I actually studied the space where my kids are at, but I was studying the teachers and how they reacted to an entirely new space. We basically took an old wing of classrooms and reconfigured them so that we would have the art teacher, the librarian, the science, and the technology space, or what we've turned into a maker lab, as well as mathematics, all in the same space. So we have everything STEAM, if you know what STEAM is, living in the same home. And so you have science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics in one place with the teachers concentrated together. And so we started collaborating and redesigning a lot of components. And normally, in a school, we have the opportunity to change the curriculum. We always are changing the people. The kids constantly are changing. That every year you have a new set of kids, and sometimes we change the teachers as well. And from a perspective of what sort of components we have control over in schools, one of the components we have is actually the environment, but we can't afford necessarily to make major changes. We can change some desks around, we can move some components around, but it's often really difficult to completely revamp a space. And that's what we did. So I got to study the effect of a major environmental change on teachers and how they enacted their curriculum. And during the course of what actually went into my dissertation, not a lot was happening because the teachers were just getting into it. They just got started, and it's difficult enough to move your classroom from year to year when you're told you're in a new room. It's even more difficult to not really fully be able to move into a space because it's not done from being constructed. And so my first components were all around recording the data from just moving in. And it was a very interesting space to be in, to think about, like, wow, this is how teachers react under the stress of moving. And it was epic in many ways, because here you have folks who expect to have a steady home, but that was ripped out. And instead what they had was a steady curriculum and a steady audience. They had the same teachers and the same kids, but their home was being changed. And that was a huge, huge difference in how we navigated a school year. Over time since then, and since settling on, the dust from construction is gone, we actually have reached a point where we have some major awesome effects on teachers. Putting the books throughout the spaces means that when teachers come down here, they go to a room based on the topic that the room is, expecting to find the books there. And so that's like a total mind shift for people. When you want a science text, you actually have to go into the science space. When you want a history book or a biography or something about culture, you come into the maker space. If you want something about the arts, you go to the art space. And that shift in how, even just how the books are laid out, has definitely had ramifications, because, you know, a teacher might say, hey, can we use the science room during this time? Because we want to look at science books, but we also want to do science experiments and explorations. Or just the fact that we all have to share ownership of spaces. The librarian and I have to negotiate when her kids will actually get access to the books that are in my space, because sometimes I have loud projects going on or very distracting things in the space. And I have to be aware of that and try to create barriers, like this barrier, so the kids aren't distracted by what's going on. But at the same time, I also have to be thinking far enough ahead that I'll be like, oh, just so you know, we're going to be doing this. Close your door because I'm going to be loud. And it's a really fun thing to do, but it's also affected our curriculum because we're communicating so frequently that we'll actually get ideas spawned off of each other. And we'll sit there and say, oh, we're doing this. I always have to do a multimedia project. Oh, we can't do that multimedia project now that we're doing this. And then before you know it, we've recreated the entire curriculum. So the environment has had major ramifications across our teaching and learning space here at the school. And it's kind of a blast and kind of fun, but it's also, every once in a while, the stressors of that are overwhelming. And one of the major findings that I found, aside from the three major impacts on any type of redesign of space, which would be the HVAC, do you have good air? The light, do you have great lighting? And the actual space, do you have enough space for what sorts of activities you're doing? Aside from the impacts of those three things, the other ramification I found that was huge was how aware are your administrative people who are responsible for supporting teachers in these transitions of the different experiences teachers are having. So if they are completely unaware and not involved, what would that ramification be? What impact would it have? We were extremely lucky. We were all in this together. I was doing the study on this space. The teachers were really invested in making this happen, and our administrators were really invested in making it happen. So we were all building in and backfilling any areas of concern or worry, and that made all the difference in this space and changed the overall outcome from being one that could have been to this magical and amazing space that now every kid who comes in here is super excited to go down to Innovation Alley and tinker, play, learn, and experiment.